was not always pretty against USC, but Oregon wins 36-27. I think there's far more good news than bad news here for the Ducks. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for a reaction episode of Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. If you have not already, like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to or watch the show, which today is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. So it was not perfect. It was not perfect. We'll get to the stuff that wasn't great for Oregon, but let's not get lost in the negativity here. First of all, Oregon had to win the game. Style points matter for sure, but Oregon has to win this game and did in order to control their own destiny to the Pac-12 Championship game and keep their hopes alive of making the college football playoff. They accomplished both of those things. So don't lose sight of the top line goal, which is get to the playoff, have a chance to play for a national championship. Those goals are within reach. And Oregon played much better than USC compared to what the score would actually indicate. So the Trojans came back and, could have kicked an extra point to make it a 1-point game. And you can have that debate. And some people are on one side, the broadcasters were on the other with regards to, do you go for 2 and get it to a 7-point game? Do you kick it, keep it a 1-possession game? I'm a kick it, make it a 1-possession game kind of guy. I think that kind of changes the tone, but I think Oregon was going to win the game no matter what. So 36-27 is the final. I almost got USC score perfect on my prediction. I was, however, 12 points short on the Oregon side of things, or I was 12 points heavy, however you want to call it. But let's just go through the numbers here. And by the way, I saw the beginning of the first quarter, which was a lot of fun, and I saw the end of the fourth quarter, which wasn't as much fun, but then Oregon won, and that made it, a heck of a lot better. So I kind of saw the good parts of the game and have not fully seen everything that took place in between. So this is going to be a true reaction podcast as I kind of, peruse the box score here based on what people are talking about and what I, also saw in the snaps I did see. Bo Nix, what do I keep saying about that guy? He's the same every quarter, every down, every play. He's the same guy. 23 of 31, 412 yards. I wonder if his average depth of target was good enough. And 4 touchdowns in the game. Also, no interceptions. Not bad for a Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback to go for over 400 yards against a defense that was not good, was also clearly, as I suspected there was a possibility of, and I didn't really know which way it was going to go, USC's defense played better without Alex Grinch there. I also thought that more than anything, Oregon kind of, shot itself in the foot. We'll get to that later because we're going through the good stuff here because there's a lot of it. 9-1, beat USC. That always feels good. Ducks are alive to go to the Pac-12 title game. Nobody can stop them. To go to the playoff, I don't think anybody can stop them there either. Bucky Irving goes for 118 yards and a touchdown. Isn't it amazing? This is kind of my broad picture, big takeaway. By the way, I was on a plane with the Thunderbirds who picked up a big win. Go Southern Utah football. Big win over Stephen F. Austin tonight. Got a chance for the first winning season in 6 years next week because they won tonight. So shout out to T-Birds. But Bucky Irving, 118 yards on the ground. And we're all going to sit here and look at that and go, it was fine. Over 6 yards a carry. It's not what he averages. Like it's amazing that you can look at this offense and hold it to such a high standard, but you have to be able to take a step back and realize over 500 yards of total offense in the game and 36 points is going to win you a lot of football games. And guess what? It won Oregon this football game. And the defense certainly played well enough. Did not play perfectly. Giving up a 4th and goal from the 9-yard line. Not great. That is not great. Prevent defense late for USC's last touchdown. I kind of understand that a bit. Oregon ended up winning the football game. Should it have gotten there? No. But can you risk a big mistake? Probably not. So USC had to use a bunch of clock. I get all that sort of stuff. But Tez Johnson had a couple of drops. Not good. He also had 7 catches for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's not bad. That's not bad. Only 6 different receivers for Bo Nix. It's usually 7 or more, but only 2 or 3 wide receivers. Gary Bryant Jr. had a couple catches in there as well. So Bo Nix has got his favorite targets, and it's Troy Franklin and Tez Johnson with good reason. These guys are just explosive and dynamic. I mean, the first 2 touchdowns that Oregon scored, let's talk about those plays for a moment, because a well-thrown back shoulder from Bo Nix. Tez Johnson makes the adjustment. USC is allergic to tackling, and Tez Johnson's got breakaway speed. The second one's arguably more impressive when you watch it. Troy Franklin looks like a first-round NFL receiver there. Yards after the catch. Holy smokes. Great throw from Bo Nix. Outstanding route by Troy Franklin, who they're worried about taking the top off the defense. So they're sitting off, and Troy Franklin just runs the dig route. Nix puts it on him perfectly so that he can keep his momentum. And holy smokes, that guy is so fast. He is such a good route runner and has got amazing high-end speed. Heck of a play there on the 84-yard touchdown on 3rd down and 13. So as I continue to scroll through, I see a lot of good things. Jordan James, an uncharacteristically slow day. I think you got to give USC's defense a little bit of credit. Like Jordan James, 7 carries for 25 yards. It's usually 7 carries for about 50 yards. Quite literally, that's about what his season average is. I think it's actually higher than that. It'd be like 7 for 60 or something. But yeah, I think USC's defense was helped by Alex Grinch not being there. And, I think the Trojans were playing a motivated brand of football headlined by Caleb Williams, who I talked about a lot on the show this week. I talked about as being the biggest key to Oregon winning the game. You know why? He's really good, and he makes ridiculous plays. And I think Oregon had a good game plan here. Remember, that was kind of, not entirely, but kind of a garbage time touchdown after the fact. And even with that drive, Caleb Williams only has 291 passing yards, and he was 19 of 34. That's a shade over 50%. That's pretty good. USC ran it for 2.9 yards a carry. That's pretty good. Caleb Williams was sacked 3 times. He was under pressure a lot more than that. He's just a really hard guy to sack. But Evan Williams had a sack, Brandon Dorlus had a sack, and Tatum Tuioti had a sack. The secondary got banged up, and guys stepped up. Yeah, Triquez Bridges was picked on a little bit. He's not a starting corner this year for a reason. Oregon's defense is better. Triquez is a number 2 corner on the depth chart instead of a number 1, and I think we saw why. Also, he performed admirably, and everybody was hurt. Roderick Pleasant was on the field for the 2-point conversion play. Oregon's got to get healthy. I think the biggest things that can stop the Ducks going forward, number 1, as I talked about earlier this week, it was a title of a show that I did, themselves. If Oregon plays Oregon football and they play at their best, it's really hard to play up to that level because they're really, really good. But when they play down to other people's levels, then you see what happens tonight, and they gave USC a glimmer of hope late, but ultimately, thankfully, they got it done. So that, injuries in the secondary, I mean, Jaleel Florence and Kyrie Jackson both being hurt, not great. The safeties are playing well, but man, there was a noticeable difference when Kyrie Jackson and Jaleel Florence were on the field and when they were not on the field, at least in what I observed. And Triquez was getting picked on at the end because Brendan Rice is a really good receiver. He made a couple of plays. He had a couple of nice coverage moments. He got beat a couple times. That's kind of what Triquez Bridges is. Solid. Not, all conference caliber. Played really well in the second half of last season. Not so well in the first half. He's up and down. That's what he is. That's why he's a number 2 corner, and he's a good one. He's a real good one. Don't forget he played his butt off against Washington and had an awesome, almost, should have been one of the people saving the game. But, I look at, the way this team just battled and end up winning by 9 points against one of the best players in all of college football, in Caleb Williams, maybe the best. I mean, he is just running for his life out there. And Oregon was shorthanded. Oregon was sloppy, but they still won the game. And that's what great teams do. You don't have to have your A game to win. Okay, Arizona State beat UCLA tonight. That was an upset. Arizona State had to have their A game. If you go over to Prize Picks, you've got to have your A game, but there are a lot of different ways that you can put your A game on display. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports is just you against the numbers. That's it. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you'll watch the winnings roll in. With basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball. These are neat. In the Specials League, you can do, for example, LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. You could go over or under if you think LeBron's going to throw up a goose egg from distance, which is not a horrible notion because he doesn't shoot it very well anymore. But you can also play along Prize Picks favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz in the community tab. So go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code lockedoncollege for first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Alrighty, let's keep things going here on this truly instant reaction show. Couple more good things. The defense just creates havoc. Like Caleb Williams made some spectacular plays because he was running for his life all the time. And I think this defense, the way that it is coached, the way it is schemed, and the way they execute on game day, I think it's really good. I think it is really, really good. The sack they had that was credited, I believe, to Dorless in the first half that I saw on USC's first possession, the sack that ultimately thwarted the drive, was such a well-executed defensive play call. It was a 5-man pressure. They dropped one guy out, brought another one from the strong side, and Oregon just rushed with discipline. They contained. I think for the most part, they did a good job. You can't keep Caleb Williams in the pocket all the time. But that was my biggest key for the Ducks going into it. I think they accomplished that task. And that's evident by the fact that Caleb Williams didn't even have 300 yards passing in the game. And then he ended the game with negative 11 rushing yards. He wasn't able to just go and get free. He had to work really hard for stuff, which has been the story of USC's season. It's why they're 7-4. They're 1-4 in their last 5 football games. Why? Because Caleb Williams has to do everything for them. They have a great player at quarterback. They don't have a great team around him. Oregon has a great player at quarterback and a great team around him. Let me check the numbers real quick. Oh, would you look at that? Bo Nix wasn't sacked again. Again. I mean, it's insane. Like, Dan Lanning deserves a lot of the credit because he brought Adrian Clem onto last year's staff, and then he brought Alik Terry onto this year's staff. When you talk about, and this is part of your evaluation as a head football coach, certainly in the way that I see it, the hires you make. Lincoln Riley, big blind spot. Alex Grinch cost the Trojans this season. Dan Lanning, I don't see a blind spot in his hiring capabilities. I mean, you have just made 2 rock star hires. Alik Terry deserves a raise this offseason. I mean, they're so good. So very good. So many different guys contributing. It was weird to see JPJ snap the ball on the ground one time. That doesn't happen very often. And then after that, Oregon dropped a pass. Tez Johnson dropped a ball over the middle to make it an easier field goal or maybe have a chance to pick up the first down. Bo Nix missed Terrence Ferguson and what would have been probably a first down over the top. And then Camden Lewis missed a field goal. So I think a lot of good things come from this game. It was not all good. Like, this was not a pretty performance, but that's the essence of my point, just to drive this home before we get into the areas that were, giving me a little bit more anxiety than I was hoping for by the time the plane landed and I got cell service back. Oregon played a, B- game, C+, B- game, and still beat a good USC team. Make no mistake about it. USC is a good team. Okay. They've played Oregon to a 9-point game, Washington to a 10-point game. Both of those, I think the Oregon game less so, but both were relatively close and competitive throughout. They lost to Utah on a last-second field goal. Like, they're playing good teams tough. They're just not a great team, and you need to be great to get through this Pac-12 conference because it's really, really good. And USC is not great. They're just good. And so Oregon beat a good team where the game was, not seriously in doubt. It kind of got there, but really Oregon was always going to win the football game, barring, a catastrophic meltdown. And I look at this game and say, we can beat a good team and not play our best football. Kind of like that. Let's get to what was not great, because there are some areas for growth. I haven't looked at the number yet. This is going to be Scout's honor. I was only a Cub Scout in first grade, but it's close enough. My instant live reaction to how many penalty yards Oregon had in the game. I was receiving a number of replies from you all out there on Twitter about the penalties. I had text messages about the penalties, and I heard the officiating wasn't great, but it's Pac-12, so what do you expect? They're mailing it in. So let's go to the team stats now. How many penalty yards we got? Oh, gosh. A Texas Tech game? 13 penalties for 120 yards. Yikes. Ooh, boy. Oh, I need to rinse my mouth out after saying that. Ugh. Gosh almighty. 13 for 120? That's disgusting. Okay. Hot take alert. That needs to be cleaned up. That needs to be cleaned up. Arizona State is not going to come out and just give us a win next week. And I don't know if you've watched Oregon State play, but they're a good football team. 552 yards of total offense, 412 through the air. This is something else with Bo Nix. I'm going back to the positive side because I think there are a lot of good things here for the Ducks. Bo Nix, and I'd mentioned this previously, and this is just kind of showing up in that sense. He can, when called upon, when it's required, carry an offense like that. He did it against Texas Tech. Did it here against USC. But he doesn't have to. He can. It's always there. I love this offense. I think Will Stein is a stud. That little tight end screen to Terrence Ferguson, that was slick. That was absolutely slick. Okay, so 13 for 120 yards makes me sick to my stomach. And yet Oregon still won the game, and USC was never in like a super duper serious way pushing them for a win. They were going to need a lot of big breaks, either an Oregon fumble or catastrophe or recovering an onside kick. Like, Oregon was in control. This game could have been won by more, but it wasn't, because Oregon was beating Oregon. Is that the right way to put that? Beating up on Oregon. They were beating themselves. It wasn't anything USC was doing. Penalties, that's all Oregon. And I know Dan Lanning is fully aware of that. Here's the other thing, though. Let me find the scoring summary here. Camden Lewis did make a 33-yard field goal. That was good, because you look at that and you go, okay, it's not a chip shot. I mean, it's not. It's a field goal you should make, right? 90+% of the time from 35 and in, you should be making a field goal. All right, 33 yards. Good. Fourth quarter, 15-point lead, 6:40 to go, 41-yarder at home. Not close. Wide right. And it sucks for a guy who has such an awesome career trajectory and career arc in development, and he gutted it out to stay with the Ducks and won the kicking job back. And here's how I'm honestly feeling about this right now. And I don't think Camden needs me to believe in him or you. He said he got rid of social media, and I think that's the right thing to do, because fans can be, dumb and irrational and say stupid things. He needs his coach to believe in him. He needs his teammates to believe in him, and he needs to believe in him, because right now I don't. I have got nothing. He is missing a kick a week. That's the rate that he's been on. Let me pull up the stats here. One sec. I should have had these But for the season, come on, you can load. Great podcasting here by me. God, that's really good. Camden Lewis on the year is now 9 for 13. Feels worse than that. Yeah, no, sorry, that's not right. 9 for 14. 9 for 14 is what he is. But he has missed a kick. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's missed a kick in 5 of the last 6 games. It's between the ears. Like, we're watching the kicks go up. It's not like he's missing them short. It's just, I think Oregon is going to get a rematch with Washington in the Pac-12 Championship game. I pray that game doesn't come down to a Camden Lewis field goal. I don't care if it's a 25-yarder. I will not have any semblance of confidence in that moment. Would it be great if the game is tied and he kicks a game winner and gets redemption? Yep, that'd be an awesome story. I'd love to come on here and be able to tell it. I have no confidence that that's going to happen right now. And that's not a great feeling. And I know that Camden isn't feeling great about things right now. But that's how we all feel, is we are back to 2019, where when he lines up to kick a field goal, I'm expecting him to miss. If it is beyond 20, if it is beyond 30 yards, I'm basically expecting, certainly beyond 35, I'm expecting him to miss. Don't like that. So penalties, sloppiness, kicking, those are the areas where Oregon's got to be better. But guess what? We're ending with more good news today. And it's time for our Athletic Brewing Company Game Changer of the Week. Much like Tez Johnson changed the game and set the tone early with a touchdown of over 70 yards, and then Troy Franklin followed up with an 84-yarder. Athletic Brewing Company has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. I know, what a concept, right? Their brews are great tasting. They're award-winning. They beat out full-strength beers in global competitions. They brew over 50 styles of craft, non-alcoholic beer, including IPAs, Goldens, Sours, and more. And they're fit for all times. No hangovers ever, so you can wear them while you're working out, at your kid's game, watching the big game, whatever you want, you can have them. You can find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you, or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. All right, so there's more good news for the Ducks. 9-1, 2 games to go. They'll be a big favorite against Arizona State on the road in Tempe, much larger than they were in 2019. And then they'll be favored at home against Oregon State in the game formerly known as the Civil War. Now, if you look around the college football landscape, things are going pretty well for the Ducks, not perfectly, okay? Florida State losing would be great. Florida State or Texas losing would be great. Georgia looks like they are still Georgia, and they're really, really good. But overall, Oregon is in a good position here. So Texas scrapes by TCU again. The committee has made it clear the eye test matters. It's why Washington hasn't been inside the top 4 despite objectively having a stronger resume than Florida State, because Florida State has passed the eye test recently more so than Washington has. And Washington played well against Utah offensively. Defense was good in the second half, but not great overall. Texas keeps playing close games and squeaking by. They beat a 4-5 TCU team on the road, 29-26. Now, people who think Oregon's overrated or whatever would look at that and say, well, Oregon played a Texas Tech team that is now 5-5 after they beat Kansas on the road and, lost their quarterback and whatnot, but they struggled with them on the road. Okay, yeah, fact check, true. Here's what the committee has made it very clear. What you have done recently is far more important than what you did earlier in the season, right? The results are what matter early in the season, but the committee has always shown they give you time to kind of find yourself, and how you're playing at the end of the year is how they're going to judge you, far more than what you did at the start of the year. So I look at the way things are shaking out, and Texas losing to remove them ultimately as being a threat would be great for the Ducks. Alabama losing would kind of be the same. The Washington debate is an interesting one. I don't think it matters whether or not Washington beats Oregon State next week. The Huskies are still going to be a top 10 team when if and hopefully when Oregon plays them in the Pac-12 Championship game. And then if Oregon beats Oregon State and gets to Las Vegas, if the Beavs have beaten Washington, that would then make Oregon State an even better win. So I don't think there's really a bad outcome there. Either the potential win against Washington would be ultimately awesome because it'd be their first of the season, or you'd pick up two really quality wins. I don't think it matters all that much. I argued on Locked On Pac-12 last week that the Pac-12's playoff hopes could have an Alabama problem. I stand by that proposition. Kentucky is not a great football team. They're not a bad one. Alabama was up 21-0 before Kentucky could put their shoulder pads on. So Bama has kind of figured it out. But here's the other good news for the Ducks. So Florida State next week plays North Alabama. Oh, wait, that's bad news, and it's an absolute joke. It's a laughingstock the ACC and SEC get to play an 8-game conference schedule. It's beyond stupid. I cannot stand it. It drives me absolutely, positively crazy. Next week, and by the way, the Beavs got jogged out of game day. Game day, what a joke. What an absolute joke. Texas plays at Iowa State next week, a sneaky good football team. They could lose there. But here's the thing. USC's brand power and the way Oregon played in the game and the way people, national pundits seem to be talking about them afterwards, I think the narrative around the Ducks is positive right now, which is what I, of course, argued on this show, that there are more positives than negatives, though there are certainly some drawbacks to this game against USC. And Oregon has been the highest ranked one-loss team in the country for a reason. And it's because they have been impressive. Now, this was not their most impressive win, for sure. They were also playing a better opponent in USC, who I think is going to beat UCLA next week and end the year 8-4. And that's what Oregon should root to happen. Our old friend Chip Kelly is probably on the hot seat. He lost to Kenny Dillingham, another old friend of ours in Arizona State. That is at home. That is a bad loss. That is a bad loss for UCLA. So I think Oregon sets up pretty well to get into the college football playoff if they win out. I still think that the loser of Michigan and Ohio State will fall behind them if Oregon wins the Pac-12, because the committee has and always will and always should value a conference champion over a non-conference champion. So a lot more good news than bad news. Let me know your questions, YouTube comments, Twitter, or join the SUBTEXT community as well to be a Locked On Ducks insider. If you were a Locked On Ducks insider on Friday night, you didn't have to watch the men's basketball game because I was watching, keeping tabs on it, and sending thoughts and reactions all throughout. You can only get that sort of stuff if you are a subscriber. Free 14-day trial, then it's just $5 a month. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.